Good deal. It's good to see you all. My name is Michael Stahl. I'm the lead pastor here. If it's your very first time joining us, thank you so much for being here. We're glad you came. I hope you felt welcome the minute that you walked in and celebrating Christmas together as a church. So I am married. My beautiful wife's name is Kristen, and we have 4 children. They are 9, 8, 8, and 5, and so they're all into Christmas. So you can imagine what my week looks like. Last Thursday night, my wife and I decided to take my kids to go take a picture with Santa. We missed last year, and my daughter is 5 years old, and so she wanted to see Santa. So we figured we'd make up for it. We'd find a good place to take a picture with a good-looking Santa. And so we decided to go somewhere really close to our house. I live across the street from here. We decided to go to this place called Kierland in North Scottsdale. On a Thursday night, it's just a short 43-mile drive from my house. Took us an hour and 20 minutes to get there because of 2 accidents. So after being very good Christians and eating dinner at Chick-fil-A, we drove southbound from the 101 on Scottsdale Road. And I know most of us in here are from the far West Valley. We don't make it out to Scottsdale, especially North Scottsdale, very often. But man, it's nice out there. Let me just tell you that. You can get a really nice 2-bedroom apartment for twice the amount of my mortgage on my 2,900 square foot house with a pool in the backyard. So we're driving down Scottsdale Road. It's the dark of night, and something catches my peripheral vision on the left-hand side. The famous Christmas at the Princess. If you've ever seen this, it's an event that happens every December at one of the nicest resorts in Phoenix. But those lights didn't just catch my eye. Out of the minivan, all 4 of my kids noticed those lights as well. Heads immediately turn left. There's a lit-up Ferris wheel in the background, huge palm trees, a polar bear, all kinds of stuff. So all 4 of my kids, simultaneously, "Dad, is that where we're going?" And I'm like, "No, kids. Mom and I decided to have 4 of you. They don't have any rooms big enough to fit a family of 6. And Dad's a pastor, so he can't quite financially swing the old adjoining rooms at the Scottsdale Princess." They don't understand that, but I'm just trying to tell them, sorry, it's a $50 picture with some old dude with a beard. Sorry to disappoint you. Those lights at the Princess last week, they caught my eye because honestly, they were beautiful lights. They do a good job there. But they perfectly contrasted the darkness that was behind them. You know this too if you have the one guy in your neighborhood, or maybe you are that guy who takes Christmas lights on his house a little too seriously. You don't mind a little bigger of an APS bill in December. You have a little Chevy Chase in you, right? Your house lights up the neighborhood. If we were to throw a drone in the air, which you might not want to do in this day and age, the one house that's decked out in lights in the cul-de-sac sticks out. It's cool to look at. It brings holiday cheer. Christmas itself is a time of lights. They're beautiful to look at. They bring warm, nostalgic feelings of the season, but the lights of Christmas are an underlying issue that there's some sort of darkness that's present. Without darkness, there wouldn't need to be light, right? This afternoon, as we gather up here at church, we gather tonight not to zero in on lights, not to zero in on gifts or the beauty of Christmas, or even all the junk food we might eat tonight. We gather instead to celebrate the fact that the baby born in the manger, Jesus Christ, came to this earth in the midst of darkness. And when he came to the earth, he provided a light to the world that had never been seen. So let's start with the problem. You can't have good news without bad news. Darkness in this world is prevalent. You don't have to look very hard to find it, do you? Some of you get a very up-close view of darkness every day on some of the jobs that you do. For others, all you have to do is turn on the TV, scroll your favorite social media site. Right away, you see the darkness and the evil that's in this world. For light to be effective, there has to be some sort of darkness. And in the Bible, that word darkness is used to describe 2 different things. It's used to describe evil and ignorance. For some, their darkness is an intentional thing. That's what the Bible would describe as evil. For others, their darkness is unintentional. The Bible calls that just simply ignorance. But this isn't anything new. 700 years before the birth of Christ, the biblical prophet Isaiah told the landscape of the people. Now, these are God's people. God's chosen people struggling to see the light. They're filled with darkness. They're trying to find anything positive in the midst of their circumstances, but all the time they feel distant from God. All the while, they'd been losing hope. Like, where is God? At the end of Isaiah 8, Isaiah paints a pretty bleak picture. He says that they will wander through the land dejected and hungry. When they are famished, they will become enraged, and looking upward, they will curse their king and their God. Just look at the adjectives here. As they wander, they look for any bit of light in the midst of darkness. They're described as dejected and hungry, quite literally starving to death. And what that does is it leads to a personal rage and finger pointing at not just the king, but God himself. God, where are you? You don't seem to be present in the midst of this darkness. In verse 22, it says, they will look toward the earth, and they'll see only distress, darkness, and the gloom of affliction. And they will be driven into thick darkness. These two verses, 21 and 22, perfectly articulate our human condition, don't they? Naturally in us, we have this darkness that's present. We sometimes feel alone. Maybe you feel like that tonight. Like God has abandoned you in the midst of life's problems. The problem is this. We aren't God, yet we pretend to be God. So what happens is we point our finger at him when things don't go right. So when things don't go how we think they should, like the people in verse 21, we stop looking upward at him because he's no longer our puppet. He's not obeying what we want out of him. Instead, we turn our gaze downward. We look down. We look toward the earth. We look toward the things of the earth like the things of the earth could solve our problems. But once we figure out that that doesn't work, forget the earth, we just look inward to ourselves. All of us are taught from a young age, you work hard enough, you can just solve your own problems. This is flawed thinking with humanity. It's flawed thinking to think that we can be some type of fixer. Sure, many of us in here are gifted with all kinds of things in life, but inherent in all of us is just this brokenness that will always prevail. Many of you in this room can testify to this. When you try to white-knuckle your way through things with no help, right? When you're struggling and you're just taught to kind of pull yourself up by your bootstraps, it feels like the earth is pushing back right on you, isn't it? The majority of the time we work hard, there's no results. You look at something in our country like poverty. Like, how is poverty possible in the United States of America in 2024? Why has nobody fixed that? It's because darkness is present. It's both in us and around us, and we're too ignorant to fix things, yet we try to fix things anyway. What happens in Isaiah 8 is that the people forget God and they look to the earth to solve their problems, and instead, what do they see? They see more and more distress, more and more darkness, more and more affliction. Isaiah tells us they run into thick darkness. I don't even know what that means. I don't know how much darker it can get than pitch black. Luckily for all of us, God doesn't keep us there. There's bad news, but there's also really, really good news this afternoon because there's hope, there's light. Just 2 verses later in Isaiah 9, you start to see light peek through thick darkness. In verse 2, it says, the people walking in darkness have seen a great light. A light has dawned on those living in the land of darkness. Those same people from verses 21 and 22, the same people who were dejected, the same people who were hungry, who were distressed, afflicted, filled with doom and gloom, those same people who had been living with no hope whatsoever, because of the darkness, they can now see the great light. Isaiah tells us that the light has dawned. Notice the word that Isaiah uses. It's not the light had sprung up from the earth. No, the light has dawned on the earth. This year, I finally stepped into 1990, and I got timers for my Christmas lights outside. And this timer plugs into my outlet, and it'll tell me, do you want to keep your lights on for 2 hours, 4 hours, 6 hours, 8 hours, all kinds of options, or do you want to pick dusk to dawn? And I'm like, why not dusk to dawn? We worked hard on these lights, keep them up all night long. When it's dark outside, I want my lights to look good in my little cul-de-sac. My wife and I work out in our garage at 5 a.m. It's dark at 5 a.m. It puts us in a good mood to do curls while you look at the Christmas lights. But once dawn comes, my lights turn off. My snowman melts. Why? It's because the sun comes up. There's no reason to have my fake lights hide the darkness. The dawn has come. The sun has risen. Now the sun shines on earth all day long, and it didn't come from the core of the earth. It shines from above and puts its light on us as human beings. And what does the sun do? Well, first off, it gives us light. If the sun doesn't rise in the morning, we're all going to freeze to death. Second off, the sun shows us truth. It's really hard to do anything in the dark, isn't it? Much better to do anything outside. You don't go do yard work at 2 in the morning. You can't see. Third, the sun is supposed to give us health benefits. Vitamin D, which comes from the sun, is told to increase your bone health. It's told to lower your blood pressure, prevent disease, and promote good mental health. There's a reason why half this church is filled with people from Seattle, Washington. You got depressed up in the Pacific Northwest, so you came where the sun is. Sun brings joy here outside the months of June, July, August, September, and October. Isaiah has good news. The sun has finally come up. Dawn has finally appeared. Darkness that was prevalent is starting to disappear. Hope has come to the people who desperately needed it, but this time it's not the actual Son, it's the Son of God born in the manger, Jesus Christ. Look at verse 6. It's right behind me on these banners. For a child will be born for us. A son will be given to us, and the government will be on his shoulders. He will be named Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Eternal Father, and Prince of Peace. That light that came through the darkness in verse 2 came in the form of a baby, a child, God in the flesh, the Son of God coming down from heaven and becoming a human being. When Jesus was born, he was born into complete and utter darkness. So the people were in darkness in 700 BC in the book of Isaiah. The people are still in darkness when Jesus is born around the year 3 AD. The world is a dark place. When Jesus is born, there was violence. There was injustice, there was abuse of power, there was homelessness, there was refugees fleeing from oppression, there were families ripped apart, and bottomless grief. That's the world that Jesus Christ was born into. Sounds kind of familiar, doesn't it? It didn't matter if it was 2,700 years ago, 2,000 years ago, or this afternoon. Darkness still appears, but the good news is that the child has been born for us. A son has been given to us. This is Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ is the gift of Christmas. Jesus Christ is the good news. Jesus Christ is the Son of God that gives life. He shows you truth, and he's the one that gives you health benefits. The same Son has been given to us in the midst of our darkness. The only true light you can find is through the person of Jesus Christ. Just look at the titles he's given in verse 6. He's our wonderful counselor. He's our mighty God. He's our eternal Father. He's our Prince of Peace. If you're a Christian in this room, don't let those titles just be a song you sing. Let those things stick in your mind and never forget the God that you serve. Jesus Christ is the wonderful counselor. Just think of that title. Probably half the people in this room right now, if not more, you've probably gone to a counselor at one point in your life. Why do we go to counselors or therapists? We go to a counselor to sit and have somebody help us sort things out in our life, right? Let's just say you've been through an intense amount of trauma and you go see a counselor. Odds are the counselor that's guiding you or helping you sort through things also hasn't been through the same trauma you have, so they can sit there and sympathize with you, but they can't empathize with you because they've never been through what you've been through. Jesus Christ, because he came as a human being, has the ability to fully empathize with your life because he lived the same. Look at this quote. He has gone through the whole of human experience. This is Jesus. From the trivial irritations of family life and the cramping restrictions of hard work and lack of money to the worst horrors of pain and humiliation, defeat, despair, and death. Jesus was born in poverty, and he suffered infinite pain all for us, and he thought it was worth his while. For any of you in this room that thinks that God is up here and doesn't know you, just look at this quote. Many of us in this room have very interesting family members. They might be sitting next to you right now, and they don't know that you think they're very interesting. So did Jesus. Many of us work really hard, yet we feel like we can never get our head above water, right? Just this year, many of us have gone through pain, defeat. Some of us have even seen death up close. Jesus is the wonderful counselor. He's the one you run to, and he knows what you're going through. He's not up here and you're down here. He came down to you so that he could be close to you. Christianity is the only religion in the world where God comes down to you and you don't have to be the guy that comes up to God. He's the wonderful counselor, but he's also the Prince of Peace. If you're in this place and you're struggling with anxiety, if you're trying to make a big decision in your life, Do you worry about the future and what life might hold for you? That stuff is all darkness, and what Jesus is trying to show you is that he is the light. He's eternal, meaning that he's been there since creation, and he will be there after the world comes to an end. There's nothing that goes on either in this world or in your life that catches Jesus off guard. He knows you intimately. He knows everything about you. He knows every thought that you have, yet he still loves you. Lastly, Jesus Christ is the mighty God. Jesus being the mighty God means that you have to make a decision about him. Either Jesus is who he says he is, he's God in the flesh, or he's a complete lunatic and we should run away from him. If you read the Bible, people either run toward Jesus or they run away from Jesus. There was no such thing as people just being indifferent about who Jesus was. In our world where it's filled with so many different distractions, making a decision on who you believe Jesus to be is the most important decision that you will ever make in your life. This afternoon, I'm up here to tell you one thing, to tell you that in the midst of darkness, a light has come, and that light is named Jesus Christ. So the question becomes, how do you receive that light? Notice in this verse, in verse 6, that the Son will be given to us. Look at that as a gift. Tomorrow morning you'll wake up and gifts will be given to you. Here's you stuck in darkness, trying to figure things out, trying to understand, like, why does life have so many ups and downs? You're looking toward the earth to fix all your problems. You're looking inward, like, I could just fix it. I'll get it right. Yet here's Jesus, filled with light, filled with peace, filled with wisdom. Those three things, if you had them, your life would be better. And God's giving you the gift of Jesus Christ right now. You just have to receive it. And that looks like moving away from your life of sin and running toward Jesus Christ. There's zero reason to be stuck in darkness. Christ was born so that you might be saved from your sin. Christ was born so that you may live your life with hope. This afternoon, church, I want to tell you that Christ is born, the wonderful counselor, the mighty God, the eternal Father, and the Prince of Peace. The only true light has dawned, and it makes the darkness completely disappear. There's no reason to look toward the earth to fix your problems when the light of the world has dawned on you. Let me pray. Father, I thank you for your word, and I thank you for the truth of it. God, I thank you for the miraculous birth of your Son, Jesus. God, I thank you for shining a light in the midst of darkness. God, I pray that you shine that light clearly in this place tonight. Father, that the people who do not follow you, the people who look inward or maybe look to the world to fix all their problems, God, I just ask that they can rely on you, Lord, they can run away from those things. God, that we can see how clearly you sent your Son to come for us, God, to live near to us. Lord, you sent your Son so that we might be forgiven of our sins. God, for the Christians in this room, I pray that that pushes us toward an obedience. God, an understanding of what this season is all about. God, I just pray that you move in this place, Lord, that people's hearts that are far from you would become closer, and God, those who are close to you, Lord, would understand deeper on who you are. God, we just thank you so much for your grace you've been given us through your Son, Jesus Christ. And I pray these things in his name. Amen.